Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks. On Tuesday, the 10th day of September, year of our Lord 2019, welcome to the John Moore Show. We begin our shows with something very important, that would be the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our prepper tip of the day, I encourage everybody to have a minimum, and I say a minimum, 2-year supply of food for your team. That might be you and your spouse, your family, whatever it might be, a 2-year supply of food. Keep in mind that children, especially children under 5, will actually starve themselves before they eat unfamiliar food. And older folks, those maybe 80 years and older, they'll do the same thing. They'll starve themselves before they eat unfamiliar food. So just keep in mind that those principles when you're getting your food supply together. We have a patient waiting in the green room, my friend Steve Ben-Noon. Steve is the proprietor of the excellent website, IsraeliNewsLive.org. Did I get that right, Steve?
You got it right, John.
I got it right. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Well, I've been telling people we now have 13 months for the 2020 election. 13 months doesn't sound too far away, does it, sir?
No, it doesn't, John. I mean, you know how they say that time seems to be going faster. I happen to run across a writing. I've been going through a lot of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I've come across one particular work, but it wasn't in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was one of the debatable books they had. I think it was Zephaniah, one they claim Zephaniah may have wrote. And he mentions in there that at the latter days, that the time would speed up, and that the years would become like months, and the months like days. I thought that was interesting in light of the fact that's what it seems like nowadays. But the time is definitely going to go by very quickly, John, and we've been doing the same. We've been sounding that alarm on our end as well, for people to take this seriously, regardless of why or anything else that these things begin and which way they go. I was even hearing, John, that we could anticipate before this starts power outages that will go across America, and that there will be disarming raids that will be taking place in the middle of the night, targeting certain individuals to disarm them. And it'll be blamed on Iraq that they have created these outages. I can't say how reliable that information is. I mean, the source is good, but is that a precursor to what's going to happen? I don't know. I would think the elections have more to do with this civil war, but who knows what they have in mind.
Well, you and I have talked about a possible civil war privately and on the radio. I think our vocabulary lacks the proper terminology for describing what would be happening. Typically, a civil war involves two entities, both determined to take power and use violence to accomplish that goal. I'm not sure that really fits what's going to be taking place. I'm looking more of chaos, quite frankly, where one side is in fact organized. That would be the communist, socialist, Muslims, Democrats, organized with the goal of creating sufficient civil disorder that they put the pieces together using the United Nations forces, which would be the Chinese, the Russians, and South Americans, to establish a new country where the rest of us, we won't be a centrally organized opposition so much as just recoiling from events and responding to events, as opposed to being some kind of organized opposition to what the enemy is throwing at us. I'm not sure there's a model that I'm aware of that fits that description. Do you know of a model that fits that description, Steve?
Well, John, when you mention the Russians and the Chinese, one of the key factors that I keep seeing is the movement of the Chinese into the United States. More specifically, the Chinese. We know the Russians are coming in as well through fast-track citizenships, and in fact, I've got a stack of documents on my desk that were given to me very secretively recently that suggest a lot of that information. And there was a documentary that came out on Netflix just recently, John, about a Chinese company up in, I believe it's in Ohio, I want to say it's Dayton, that was replacing one of the automotive factories, a window company. And of course, the people that used to work for the automotive factory made like $27, $28, $29 an hour. Now they're only making $12 an hour. And as you watch the documentary, it's so candid of the mentality, and it's very obvious communist type of mentality that they are trying to mold the American into preparing them for what's to come. And then I've been seeing, and I say this, John, not in a racial tone. I don't want people that are Chinese Americans to feel awkward when I say this, but I've been noticing a lot of changes even here in South Florida. Very, very strange scenarios that I just don't normally see. We're talking about Chinese young people driving cars like Bentleys, Ferraris, and and I'm not saying that that shouldn't be so, but you just don't see that very often. And with this idea that there is very wealthy Chinese people that have come to America to establish new factories in this country, I cannot help but wonder if this is not part of the agenda. I sat, John, with a colleague of mine when I was in the CIA, and we discussed how that the Chinese have been flooded in through our northern border through Canada, and that nobody really is paying attention to it, but they're coming in droves, but then they're using these fast-track citizenships to get them legalized here in the United States. And a lot of these companies, John, do not even exist. They are on paper, but if you go to some of the addresses and stuff, the addresses don't exist. And
it's a filed folder in some office, and the entire company is inside a file folder and nowhere else.
Exactly. And I was in the stack of papers. That's what I'm going through. I've got it's like 1,000-page document, but I have 100 pages of this document, and we're talking about just scores of LLCs and as you go through them, and as I research some of these companies, I realize that, when you look at the business and you look at the address of the business or of the individual that is that's on the board of this company, they're just P.O. boxes. They're not. There's no real. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the company having a P.O. box, but when you get to where it's consistently, there's no place for the company. There's no address that's a real address for the company. And I'll give you one example. There's a property in South Carolina that back in 2007, this property was purchased. They were going to make a Christian theme park. Well, it went under within less than a year. And the people that did this originally were from South Florida. The Chinese now own this property here. And, of course, they use that property to bring in a lot more people. And then the same people purchased a property up in Tennessee, just outside of Nashville, to do the exact same thing. And again, the investors were there, and in order to get the company off the ground, you're able to move humans into the country and to get them placed here with fast-track citizenship, but it never became a reality. And again, it was another theme park, another Christian theme park, but I could see where you could bring in hundreds of people at a time, John, hundreds of them, for this new business, just like they did. Well, of course, in Ohio, they actually made the company, and it is operable right now, but 50% of the employees are Chinese. And no doubt the Chinese are dedicated, but could they be soldiers as well? Who knows?
Well, I'm going to throw something else in the mix here. It's been reported by several sources that the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, that would be Nicaragua, has purchased 50, that's 50, Russian T-72B, that's two T-72 Bravo tanks, at a cost of $80 million. They've taken delivery of 20 already, 30 left to be delivered. The Nicaraguan government is saying this is part of their expanded police force. Well, you don't use tanks for a police force. This is clearly, tanks are an offensive weapon. That's what tanks are designed to be, an offensive weapon, not a defensive weapon. They have no legitimate enemies in Central America that would justify that kind of expense, which is, quite frankly, larger than the entire military budget. Only 4 years ago, in 2015, the entire military budget was $71.6 million. This is an invasion force. Clearly, it's an invasion force. But when you buy these tanks here, Stephen, you don't just get the tanks. These are sophisticated pieces of equipment that require Russian technicians, Russian spare parts, which means deliveries at least once a month, maybe every week, every other week, of spare parts to keep these things running. And this is just what we know publicly. We know that these tanks have been bought, that they're being delivered. What we don't know is what's got me concerned about what else is going on there involving Russian military presence in Nicaragua. And of course, this fits hand in glove with the report that we got, and you and I verified independently, of the meeting in Chicago of all the our southern neighbors meeting in Chicago to decide how to split up the country. And of course, that fits hand in glove with the Chinese and the Russians being in this country as well, doesn't it, sir?
It does, John. And I actually had two sources that was able to confirm that, one from the White House and one from the Pentagon, both. The meeting there in Chicago, and this is really, John, you as you said close to the beginning of the program, that the Democrats would be more organized, and they may be, using these foreign powers to move into this country here. That is such a plausible scenario, and and most people probably would never think that could be possible.
Well, here's what they're going to do, Steve. First of all, they want the least amount of opposition from Joe and Jane Sixpack out here. They want the least amount of opposition. So there will be what appears to be spontaneous civil disorder with no central control or command, just people that are upset and are rioting in the streets. The countermeasure will appear to be our friends from across the ocean under the auspices of the United Nations coming here, United Nations, the good guys with the blue helmets, to restore peace and restore order. So Joe and Jane Sixpack can go to work on Monday morning, pick up that steak and six-pack on the way home, and watch some professional football when they get there. Things to be restored to normal, and the United Nations will be our friends from across the ocean to help us do that. that will disarm, psychologically disarm, Joe and Jane Sixpack to cause them not to gather their own arms and resist what's going on, knowing that the good guys in the blue helmets will be coming to the rescue. By the time it's determined by Joe and Jane Sixpack that the guys in the blue helmets really are our enemy, it will be too late, because they will have command and control. They'll have control of communications. They'll have control of the airports. They'll have control of the seaports, the inland waterways, the railroads, interstate highways. By the time Joe and Jane Sixpack figure this out, there will be a lockdown on everything important, your response.
Well, John, there's been in the past, I've had people send me photos of UN vehicles, even already here in the United States, and people asking me, Steve, why would we have United Nations marked vehicles here, other than maybe perhaps we manufactured them and painted them? I realize that's a possibility too, but that again is a very plausible scenario. And like you said, John, the American people aren't going to expect anything. And I know you've mentioned before to me privately, that when the time comes, you've got at best 24 hours, more realistically 12 hours to move when you start seeing things go down. And the problem is are the people going to recognize what's going on? Could it end up being an internal strife, in the government to start with, and these troops and stuff being mobilized? And when you mention China and Russia too, John, you got to remember they're part of the BRICS, which I've been told before is really a precursor to a New World Order government, which includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and was it South Africa?
I believe so, yes. Hold that thought, Steve. We got a break. The call number is 800-313-9443. We'll be right back.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms, or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356, or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN, at hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 10th of September. My website is thelibertyman.com. We're going on a cruise. We are going on a cruise. This cruise will happen. Leaving Florida the 9th day of February. I'll have a speaking engagement with Steve. That will be the 8th of February. They're someplace in the metro area of Florida there. It will be a lot of fun to do that, and the cruise is going to be a romantic cruise. We'll have St. Valentine's Day right in the middle of the cruise. If you do not have internet access, you want to study and read up on the cruise and get a nice full-color brochure, give Betsy Murphy a call at 636-530-9502. I say again, 636-530-9502. The speaking event in Orlando, Steve, it's still early to be putting it together, but it will be fun, won't it?
Yes, it will. In fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken now, because of our date for the event, we finally moved into the time frame where I can get that booked on this end here, because I tried to book it earlier, and it's going to be at the as far as we know, everything is, we always do it at the Embassy Suites by Hilton. It's it's an older hotel, but it's a very nice hotel there, resort hotel in a place called Maitland, Florida, which is just to the east of Orlando. If any of you guys are just so you can at least put your eyes on the map and see whereabouts this is located at. That's exit off of Interstate 4, literally less than about a quarter of a mile off the interstate. Just as soon as you get off, it's like the first turn, and it's at exit 92. So those of you that at least want to eyeball that, we normally get whatever we're asking for there, unless for some reason some big super duper organization beat me to it. But right. We should be good to go there.
Well, my friend Ted Brower, who lives in Metro Orlando area, unless he's out of town, he'll be there also. Ted has done thousands of radio shows and knows more about nutrition than most human beings ever will. Well, that will be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Well, Steve, getting back to the original premise, what we're doing here, what you and I, we're the watchmen on the wall. We're giving people a heads up. We believe there's a high probability. Things can change. And President Trump is fully aware of the events that we're talking about. Of course he is. And behind the scenes, he's doing what he can to mitigate and to compromise what our enemies have planned, on one hand. On the other, we can't count on President Trump being successful, can we, sir?
Nope. We sure can't. And, you know, John, I wonder sometimes, and let me just, this thought I'd like to throw out your way there. Do you think Hong Kong, and I know it's a totally different situation completely. I mean, these people are not running around with guns on their hands, but, you know, where we have a little bit different policy here in America. But do you think that we might see a build-up similar to like what they have in Hong Kong, where, you know, the people are protesting in the streets and stuff, and then the next thing you know, here come the troops rolling in from China? So it makes you wonder.
Well, I'm not sure who's going to protest what. The protests I see happening in this country, I see coming from our enemies, as opposed now, who's protesting in China and Hong Kong, I should say, is the men and women I would consider the good guys, the men and women who support freedom,
right.
and
right.
So forth. So I'm not sure there's a good parallel there.
Well, it would be the opposite as far, like you said, the people in Hong Kong, they're wanting to keep their freedom. They do not like the idea of what's happened there. And of course, the protests have been to keep that democracy, at least as much as what they have been able to enjoy. And, here just a couple of days ago, the next thing you know, now the Chinese borders opens up and here all the troops come pouring in. In our country here, we get a lot of paid protesters, paid opposition, and they're telling where all these thugs come from that they just love to start violence. And what's really strange to me, John, is that these people can be the most violent people you could ever imagine, but yet they're the ones that are calling for, we got to disarm the nation.
Right.
It's really strange. Republicans seem to be more passive, but yet they believe in the Second Amendment right, and the Democrats are the most violent ones.
Passive to a point.
Yes, to a point, I agree. But still, when you watch in these situations, when we have these things going on, the Republican will be the one that'll try to turn the other cheek and, look, calm the situation. And the Democrats are just like, they call them Democrats. Are they really even Democrats, or are they just, again, paid opposition by George Soros and his bunch of thugs?
Well, here's something. This brings up something I heard a number of years ago when it comes to in the middle of America. In New York City, for example, my first visit there was an 18-year-old. There was a man laying on the sidewalk in Times Square. I don't know if he was passed out or dead. And police officers 10 feet away who were just having a casual conversation and not paying attention. I alerted the police officers, and they looked at me, they looked at the guy on the sidewalk and went back to their conversation. We'll continue this after the break.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We have a special promotion going on at Republic Broadcasting. This is a fundraiser for Republic Broadcasting involving the energy cleaner. Mail me a postcard. My address is at my website at thelibertyman.com. We pick a postcard every other Thursday. When your postcard is drawn out, you get to buy an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285, $70 discount. $200 goes to Republic Broadcasting. You also get a 10% discount on my mattress pads. So get those postcards in, put your name, your telephone number, your email address on there, and when your postcard is drawn, you get to get an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285. Mattress pads, 10% off. Help us out at Republic Broadcasting and help yourself to get an energy cleaner at a deep discount. It's a win-win situation for everybody. We hope you can get these postcards in soon. Thank you very much. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 10th day of September. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. Scroll down the left side of my home page, you'll see an article that says, "Where have all the bugs gone?" This is a letter I wrote to a British entomologist, and then her response. Quick follow-up on that. I've got two very good-sized ponds at my place, a large creek and a small creek. And last night, I was outside listening. I heard the bugs, but I did not hear any bullfrogs. That's pretty scary. Also, my website, of course, you'll find energy cleaners for sale. I use mine every day. I wake up pain-free in the morning after a great night's sleep. You can also, if you have arthritis pain, quite frankly, you need an energy cleaner. You're not sleeping well at night, you also need an energy cleaner. $285 shipping included. Keep in mind, I offer a 90-day money-back guarantee. That's from me to you personally. Details at my website where you can order your energy cleaner using PayPal. Mattress pads the same way. Toll-free order line 24 hours a day. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Visiting with Steve Ben-Nun. His website's IsraeliNewsLive.org. I say again, IsraeliNewsLive.org. And if you got a question or comment, give us a call at 800-313-9443. Steve, we're seeing all the all the pieces being put in place through open sources. We're getting confirmation through private sources. And I don't know what the military is doing behind the scenes. I hope they're making preparations, but when you're not even allowed to name your enemies, as Michael Flynn found out when he wrote his book, and that's why the FBI was tasked to go after him, because he wrote his book during the Obama administration, basically saying, how can you possibly win any conflict if you're not even allowed to name your enemies, which of course is Islam. And behind the scenes, we know there's good men and women in the military that will do the right thing for the right reasons within the restrictions that they're given. And we don't know how severe those restrictions are, do we, Steve?
Well, that's one of the big problems right there, is what are the restrictions, because as you know, John, military command, you follow the chain of command, and that's going to be very, very difficult with situations that we're being faced with now. And then again, of course, with the scenario that we're facing right now, is our military, are they going to be fighting against this UN forces coming in, or are we going to have a split in the military as a result? More than likely, I would think a split. Probably not to a large scale, but still.
Well, the question comes up, Steve, fighting with what? Now, this goes back for decades. During the Clinton administration, I mentioned the T-72 Russian tanks. The Clinton administration ordered U.S. Army M60 tanks, which is not state-of-the-art, but still a battle tank every bit as good, if not better, than the T-72, ordered them demilitarized and made into places for fish to live out in the ocean, artificial reefs. So they dumped perfectly good tanks out in the ocean for fish to have a place to live in. And of course, our military now we have less men and women in our U.S. military now than we did on December 7th, 1941. It's a very small military, isn't it?
It is. And, John, here's another major issue, too. And when back, I want to say it's been at least 2 years ago, myself and my wife, we were in Bratislava, Slovakia, covering the foreign ministers' meeting that was happening there, and it was kind of very low-key. We happened to be in a place that they didn't want journalists. We were right there at the door, and it took them a little bit to figure out what we were doing. But next thing we know, after about everybody's completely out, every foreign minister you could think of, including Boris Johnson, as he comes out, I'm standing right there beside the guy. They're like, and everybody kept looking. What is the media doing here? The media is supposed to be back there about 100 yards away with their cameras watching all this, but they were there meeting about what they called their New World Army, organizing their New World Army. Now you have to understand, this is when Obama was sending. It was before President Trump, so it's been a few more years back now as I think about it, but Obama was still president. He was sending in all this military equipment. Maybe Trump was president by then, but it was still from the Obama administration, sending all this military equipment into Europe. And then I was told that the military equipment is not just being sent there by the United States on loan for military drills, but yet it was being purchased for this new world, as the Europeans are calling it, this New World Army. That was the title that they were given there at this foreign ministers meeting. It was called the New World Army, And so, when you mentioned the Russians and the Chinese coming in, are they forming this new military power in Europe? Is that going to be the global police in the future? Will they end up replacing the United Nations? Don't know.
Good question. We got a couple of callers on hold. First, we go to John in Tennessee. Good morning, John.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Two things very quickly. Steve, the last time I heard you on the broadcast, you were talking about Israel and the entities that were telling Israel what to do. I took from that what I told John was the Lovecraftian old ones. Am I correct in assuming that that's what you're talking about?
The entities, according to, and I'm going to see if I can pull this up real quick while I'm speaking about this here. One of the friends that I have there that's with the Mossad there, I actually compiled together some notes there I've taken from him, and he is literally talking about alien beings. Now, I'm sure some people, especially Christians, would say, well, you're speaking about fallen angels, whatever that people want to call them. But as he said to me, these individuals have the 1,000 IQ. I've got it right here in front of me now. And this is, dictating this information. He says, I talked with the owner of the Israeli company, and of course this Israeli company is more advanced than D-Wave, as he told me. He said, and I asked about the intelligence of these things they are getting data from, and he said they're at least 1,000 IQ, he would imagine. And but he specifically, when he talks to the owner of this company, he asked him if he was afraid, and he said that they're more powerful than any government on the earth. So,
and I would agree with that.
Exactly. So, and I can tell you, and this is from an individual that I know advises the President of the United States. This is about the best I can say on air here, that has sent me evidence from the Pentagon that he said used to be very secretive, but more and more in the Pentagon, if you happen to work there, you could see these this particular wing that he told me they expanded there at the Pentagon that has where they actually do the autopsy on aliens there. Now, I don't think it's because we're out there knocking off aliens, but for whatever reason, they have those that have died and they're able to do the autopsies on. And he also confirmed that these beings do work. And this part here, he said to me, was secondhand information, but the first part was not secondhand, but that they do work with governments in this world.
Okay. The other question I had, I am in agreement. I'm a Christian. I think it's the fallen angels. The other question I had was, what can you tell me about what is going on in Israel on the 27th of September with the, let me see how I can phrase this, the sacrifices and the Noahide laws on the 27th. There's a lot of nations that are going to be involved in that. What do you know about that?
The only thing I know about it thus far is that the Sanhedrin has invited the 70 nations, of which I think they have representatives from about a dozen nations. They actually do name who they have thus far. And they're going to be on the Mount of Olives. And they said there will be priests there that can direct the Gentiles. They have to build their own altar, and they're going to do an animal sacrifice on the Mount of Olives for the sins of Noah, for the children of Noah, the Gentiles, in other words. And not only are they going to do that, but and these are diplomats, by the way, from these nations. These are parliamentary leaders from these different nations that'll be there. They are listed, if anybody wanted to look it up, who's going to be there thus far. I don't know if there's going to be more nations as of yet, but they will also be meeting with officials at the Knesset as well in Israel. That's the most I know about it thus far.
Do you find it a little blasphemous, Steve, that at the very spot that Christ ascended, they're sacrificing animals again when he was the lamb, and now here they go again?
I do. It's very blasphemous, and it's quite concerning. I know that Michelle Bachmann was involved with a delegation in the Netherlands recently, where again they were there pushing, a delegation with Israeli officials pushing to move the International Court to Jerusalem. That was another thing that was going on. And Michelle Bachmann, I know she wrote me several times back in 2016 wanting me to remove some videos where I had spoke about her, and I never was anything negative, but she was fearful that because of some things, and she was pretty much in detail to me why she needed me to remove these videos because of what her ambitions were. She couldn't have any association with anyone that was against the Catholic Church. And I'm not against the Catholic people, but it was just I was very much vocal at that time about the covenant that was going on between Israel and the Vatican. And so, but I see more and more why she was doing so, because there is this move to it really comes down to, it's part of the New World Order. The New World Order headquarters will be in Jerusalem, and that's just part of it. So this is why we see the things that we're seeing happening now.
Okay. Well,
John, one more thing, please.
Very quick.
Do you know of anyone from the United States that is announced they're going to participate on the 27th?
Not to my knowledge, as of yet.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for the call. Okay, we got our next caller is Jerry in Texas. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, Steve and John. That subject there scares the bejesus out of me. And I try to, that's what yeah. The reason I called in, I was talking about the military. I'm a retired military Army man, was talking. He's, I guess you call him a prepper, and what very serious. And I was talking about some of the things that had been going on and went on during the Obama administration. And he looked at me, he says, well, he was a commander-in-chief. And this guy's got something besides bone between his ears. And that kind of floored me, and I yet to figure out exactly what he was saying, unless he thought I was trying to entrap him in something. But when the proverbial dung hits the fan, if he's got that mindset, and I got a lot of respect for him, where's that going to leave us with our military? Am I making sense, guys?
Well, I think you're making sense. What do you think, Steve?
I do, John. John, you might be better on answering that question there.
Jerry, what's your main concern about this question?
Well, there's good people out there that, old saying goes, I grew up with an expression, they've got some horse sense. But when, I guess indoctrination is military indoctrination. Well, whatever our commander-in-chief, our generals say we're going to do. John, we had that discussion the other day about Ruby Ridge and some of this Waco and what have you. I was just following an order, so I'm going to just start shooting up, right. Whatever moves, regardless. Are you following me, John?
Right.
I don't know if I can
You're concerned about what the U.S. military would do against our own people?
That's why they're not going to use the U.S. military.
Right. Well, and Steve's right. They're not going to use U.S. military because they can't be trusted, especially the senior NCOs and field grade officers. Those are two groups of men, and that will follow their constitution and their oath of office, and they can't be trusted to do the wrong thing. They can't.
This is
do the wrong thing. I like that one. Yeah. Okay. I just want to pass that on. Just the idea that, this man, he said, well, he was our commander-in-chief. Well, that and 4 bits will buy me a couple, both the 4 bits, I guess, now. But anyway, thanks for taking my call, guys.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up for our next caller here, Steve?
Sure. Let me just, one thing I was going to say on that, John, was that, the few years ago, they had the questionnaire go before the military. One of the things that my brother was telling me about when he was in, and he said, they were wanting to know, would they be willing to shoot Americans? I mean, that's pretty blunt. But they know it's not going to happen. So, they'll get some crazy wackos that would. They don't care. But as you know, and I know, John, they have fully made preparations for that.
That's right.
That's the way it's
going. Hold on,
go.
Steve. We got a break. We got one more caller. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday the 10th, visiting with Steve Ben Noon. His website's IsraeliNewsLive.org. Our last caller is John in Texas. Good morning, John.
Hello. I have a question concerning, you mentioned Obama. You know of Andy Martin and Joel Gilbert?
I don't have a clue who they are. Do you have any idea, Steve?
No, I don't.
Okay, we don't know who they are, John.
Andy Martin was the one that first, when he did an investigation to prove that Obama was a Muslim from birth, and he went out to Hawaii, and he didn't disclose it. This was in 2008, just while the campaign was going on. He said that he had, from his sources, he said that Obama's real father was Frank Marshall Davis, and Joel Gilbert did his own investigation. It was rather speculative, but he seemed to go into the same conclusion, and he said that the Kenyan birth story was a smokescreen to hide this and to confuse people. Also, how could, or you think that there is going to be an excitement or a flare-up of racial, that there's going to be an attempt to flare up racial tensions in order to bring out civil unrest and prelude to
I believe
all
that will
these,
be part of it. When the time comes, that will be part of it. It'll be a major part of it. What do you think, Steve?
Well, that's one of the things, John, that I've shared with our listeners for quite a few years now. When I was in Washington, D.C. back in, I want to say it's around maybe about 6 years ago. And this is something I was told when Obama was president, that the government, well, I shouldn't say government. Sometimes you hate the word using the government, but nonetheless, there were those that were in power then under Obama that were trying to use skull-to-brain technology and to create events that would be blacks being killed, the black community being targeted, crimes being done against them in order to incite violence between the two. And I was told quite bluntly. He said, Steve, he says they're wanting to create civil unrest between the white and black community, so because they're hoping to get them riled up so that they would have an excuse to disarm the nation. That's quote unquote. And John, this is another thing to think about. If they're going to use the Chinese and Russians to come in to try to overthrow our nation, it would only stand to reason that one of the things that they would like to do before that time were to try to limit the amount of guns if they can come up with some excuse to disarm the nation, or by clandestine means. So that's something I think we ought to consider.
We need to. Steve, thank you, sir. We'll have you back next week. Top of the hour break. We'll be back with Leon Green. Stay tuned. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here, our second hour on Tuesday, the 10th of September. Prep tip of the day, I want to encourage everybody to have a 2-year supply of food for yourself and your team. Make sure you do it. Make sure it's nutritious food, is properly stored, and that you'll meet all the nutritional needs, the dietary needs of everybody from the very young to the older folks. That's your prepper tip of the day. We patiently in agreement with my friend Leon Green. Leon is a gentleman who began a quest more than a decade ago to become quite knowledgeable in anything and everything to do with essential oils to be used in health and daily living, especially doTERRA essential oils. We'll be talking about the oils. We'll be talking about all kinds of things, as we typically do. Good morning, Leon.
Good morning, John. How are you doing, sir?
Really good. Well, tell me what adventure training you have coming up that I need to be jealous of next.
Well, the most important thing is I'm
jealous and envious of. Jealous and envious of.
I'm here. I just got to Salt Lake City last night, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm doing the convention this week, and so. But after that, that's the most important thing about learning about the oils. But after that, I'm going to front site to do an advanced integrated. That means we do everything: empty hand, edge weapon, handgun rifle, and also physical. So it's pretty interesting. That one's a 4-day class, and they do simulations as well in tunnels, so I can bring out night vision. And then after that, I'm going to come back to Salt Lake City and do this really advanced training with Ready Man, which is a elite group of special forces, 3 or 4 Army SOF and 1 SEAL. And so we're going to do recon and recce, so ambush, and so that's going to be 2 weeks of fun.
Absolutely. Well, you certainly stay busy, and the training never ends, does it?
No, it doesn't. And so even when I drove out here last night, I was listening to some 18 Delta medics that will be doing some training down in October down in Texas with a group called the Urban Path, and they are dealing with austere training or austere medicine, in which what the goal they were supposed to do a year ago was supposed to be advanced with austere dental, where there's no dentist, and you actually have to start doing advanced dental care and withdrawals, reconstruction, pretty much everything. Everything went to pot, and you had to be the dentist. That's the level of training we're using. These 18 Delta doctors are focusing on that. So I try to train across the board, and I'm going to do some ham training shortly too. So I'm always looking for advanced training and even basic training and things I've never done. So I enjoy doing that.
All right. Well, dental problems can be on the low end distracting. On the high end, they can kill you. An abscess tooth, it can poison you and kill you, can't it?
Absolutely. And so, yes, there was even with the same Dr. Pearson. He's an active doctor in ER out in Utah, and we have some pictures of some of the abscesses in the mouth that choked off the breathing tube, and the larynx, and this person was died, and it got so bad. So you're right, and the mouth is the dirtiest orifice in the whole body. So if you don't have a clean bill of health when it comes to that, it can be life-threatening for sure, especially if you're on a mission. When you're trying to focus on staying alive, now you're trying to stay alive twice because of the mission, but also secondly, you're getting infected as you're running around traipsing through the woods or urban environment for that matter.
Well, I hope people are paying attention and they're doing more than just being entertained by this conversation, that they will pay heed and get involved in training, beginning with the basics. You don't go into the advanced stuff. In fact, the better schools won't allow you to go into the more advanced courses without taking the preliminary courses first, will they, Leon?
Absolutely, and it is crucial that you have the basics, because it doesn't matter if you're Magic Jordan or Michael Jordan. I'm sorry. You don't. And even Notre Dame. I remember watching this movie in which the coach said they would start each year off as, this is a football, and they started everybody at the basics. So, you don't get to the advance until you master the basics, and all the advances, the basics being done on a more sophisticated level, but you have to know the basics for sure. You do.
Now, going back to the dental issues, there's things that the oils can do to help with any kind of infection, including an infection in your mouth, aren't there, Leon?
Absolutely. So clove oil, cinnamon, wild orange, rosemary, eucalyptus, those 5 oils are both antibacterial. In conjunction, as a synergy, they are antibacterial, antiseptic, and the citrus oil is antiviral. And so same with cinnamon, it's hot. It's a super antibiotic. That, along with oregano, those two, if you have those 2 oils alone, they are phenomenal for all 4 vectors of pathogens, whether they are bacteria, virus, parasite, or fungus. And so, yes, those, it's best to do on guard sublingually, but it may be kind of spicy because of cinnamon and clove, but you can still take it on your skin or take it. They even have On Guard and On Guard Plus, which includes Melissa oil, which is lemon balm, and On Guard Plus is another blend specifically by doTERRA that is for if you've already gotten sick and you procrastinated or you didn't take it as a prophylactic, then yes, you take that On Guard Plus, which is phenomenal for people who I've gone to hospitals and people are on death's bed, and that combination was miraculous. And they were on IVs, and the doctors are like, oh, it's a hope and a prayer that this person's going to survive. So the oils are phenomenal in that capacity.
Well, they are. And if you want to get started on the oils, like Leon does, like I do, here's what you do. First of all, go to my website at thelibertyman.com, and under products, just scroll down to the doTERRA section. That's the portal to get access to all the doTERRA products right there. Number 2, get yourself a copy of the book. You might want 2 copies. The book, the title of it is Modern Essentials. Real simple, 2-word title, Modern Essentials. You're going to want the 5th edition. The 11th edition is coming out in a week or 2, isn't it, Leon, I believe?
Yes, sir. I can mention I'm going to grab 1 or 2 and maybe send a case home, but yes. Okay. It's going to be current oils plus the new ones, yes.
So you need those 2 books. The 5th edition says things we're not allowed to say anything more, thanks to the FDA. Thank you very much. But the 11th edition has all the latest oils in it, and that'll be published and ready for distribution in 2 or 3 weeks. Finally, if that's not enough, you can give Leon a call, and if you need a private consultation, Leon will give you a private consultation. What's that telephone number up there in Metro Denver?
It's 303-495-2188 Mountain Time.
303-495-2188. And if you fall in love with these oils, like I have, and like my wife, Dr. Moore, did, you may just want to, if you're the kind of person who likes to talk to people, outgoing, you might just want to talk to Leon about becoming a doTERRA distributor and turn it into a business that could be a nice little source of extra income, couldn't it, Leon?
Absolutely, and I look at it now. The focus of my life for the last 10 years now has been learning about the oils, but it's been a conduit now that's allowed me to have the freedom to do all this training and go on these cruises and things like that, because it has been so lucrative to be able to assist other people who are the option is here. I can stay in the drug system, take all the pharmaceutical drugs, and have all the repercussions and all the issues attached to iatrogenic disease, where the doctors do the best, the medical doctors do the best, and physicians. But people still pass away because the inherent aspect of pharmaceuticals they are not natural based. They are all synthetic.
Right.
And being that way, they have repercussions. That's why if you watch the last 30% of almost all of 30%, 40% of all the commercials out there, they list all the complications from the drugs they are selling you at highly inflated rates that have shortened lifespans. And so
that's right.
When you see these side effects that have, that say, liver damage, a coma, sleepwalking, anal leakage, erectile dysfunction, and death, and that's something that you're paying for, that it will not be available during everything hits the fan, then it should be blatantly obvious that there should be some alternatives. And so that is why when I ran into it providentially, it was a huge blessing in my life to learn about having the capacity of having physical products in my possession that I control, that I can learn about now, while everything is hunky-dory. Whereas when things go south and you hear, like right now, if you think about what happened on the eastern seaboard, those lives, some people's lives are going to be, that's the end of the world as they know it now, because it has changed that much. And Katrina's out of most people's memories, but this is vivid, just like Super Sandy years ago. So if you realize that you can access these now, and you won't have access to YouTube to download all these, all the videos on how to repair your transmission or how to fix a deuce and a half, now is the time to take action and learn how to learn how to do a ham radio, and now specifically to get the oil, so you can actually have them in your supply and in your cache, and you can stash these in advance, and they'll be viable hundreds of years down the road.
That's right.
Cool, dark, and dry.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, the mantra for myself and some of the radio talk hosts I know, such as my friend Steve Ben Noon, who was with me this first hour, is 13 months. We have 13 months. Hopefully we got 13 months, but there's no guarantee. But in these next 13 months, people can build themselves a nice little inventory of oils, beginning with a kit. And the best way for a new person to begin is with a kit, isn't it, Leon?
Absolutely. The kit's the easiest way to go, and it's the smartest way to go, because it gives you the most variety for the basic, and you can go all the way up to the diamond kit that has everything in doTERRA's entire inventory, including the supplements. So the kit is a smart way, because even if you got the basic one, which is the Home Essentials kit, you'll have 10 plus oils and a diffuser, and those oils will address bacteria, viruses, pain, sleep, anxiety, the whole list of human maladies. And so I would say about 85% of all the issues that humans deal with can be addressed in those 10 oils. And then, of course, you want to, it's just like saying, hey, I'm going to be in pain just for 6 months, and then everything's going to come back together. And if you're saying it's going to be 13 months from now, if America implodes, it's going to impact the entire world. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, there'll be an impact on you. And so And many people I've talked to say, I'm going to Costa Rica. That seems to be but then you're still an American who is now a target overseas because they're like, okay, you still have money even if your retirement check or your Social Security doesn't come, we're still going to come after you. So, it doesn't matter where you are on the planet. Unless you're independently wealthy and you're in New Zealand like the elitists are going to, you're still going to be impacted. So it's crucial that you prepare now and learn as much as you can in this 13-month window if we have that.
Well, I got news for people that think they're going to be safe in New Zealand. China wants New Zealand, and New Zealand does not have a military. They used to rely on the United States until the communists and the native-born communists in New Zealand ran off all the U.S. Navy. So that they don't have that coverage anymore either. But that's my reality. Is China wants New Zealand. There's nothing to stop them.
And you saw what happened to Australia with the Japanese and New Zealand and Papua New Guinea. So if you think Japan was it wasn't even a superpower back then in the 30s, and they took over China. So now here's a superpower with almost 200 million people that can be conscripted into the military. There's not going to be much that can counter that magnitude. In New Zealand now, they've stolen all and confiscated all the guns, just like Australia has from the civilians. So now it's completely a jewel that's going to be overrun.
Absolutely. Well, let's get back to dear old America here. And we have listeners in New Zealand, and God bless you. I've shipped a number of energy clinics to New Zealand and a whole bunch to Australia. And it's often said, at least my belief is that Australians are probably the closest to Americans of any foreign country, possibly even more so than Canada. But back here in this country, we don't know what we're facing. We know that regardless of what we're facing, it will be a good idea to have the doTERRA oils in normal times as well as into hard times. And you mentioned in passing a moment ago, the prescription pharmaceutical products that people are relying on right now simply will not be available. The average person has a 30-day prescription, which means a 15-day supply on average in their home. And once it's gone, it's gone. And that's where the oils come in. The time to wean yourself off these harmful, dangerous, expensive prescription pharmaceutical products is to do that now, one at a time, using the oils instead of the pharmaceutical products. Correct, Leon?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Hold that thought. We got a break. We'll be right back.
As a listener of RBN, you're surely concerned about being informed and being ready for whatever may come. Please consider the following questionnaire as a soul-jarring wake-up call. If you answer no to more than 2 of these following questions, you probably aren't going to make it through any major disruption in our country. The questions were compiled by people that have been there. Are you really ready? Do you own your own firearm for the primary defense and protection of you and your loved ones? Have you ever been professionally trained to stand against life-threatening behavior? Have you ever practiced enough to fire 500 rounds during a 2 to 4 day time frame, day and night? Can you load, unload, fire, and clear a jam in total darkness? Have all the adults in your household been professionally trained? Are you, life and death, comfortable with your abilities with pistol, revolver, shotgun, and rifle? Are you aware that everything that you do to prepare for an emergency is a waste of time, money, and energy? If you haven't honed your abilities to their highest level to protect and keep what you have, do you have the repair parts that will most likely be needed for each of your firearm, and do you have the ability to install those parts? Could you completely clean every firearm you own? Are you aware that your body won't go where your mind hasn't been? In other words, without proper training, followed by regular practice, you probably will not win a gunfight. Well, how did you measure up? Take the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to start correcting your deficiencies by receiving your Commander Lifetime Membership with Front Sight Firearms Training Facility. A one-time donation to RBN for $500 will give you a Commander Lifetime Membership at Front Sight as a tremendously huge thank you bonus. See details on RBN's webpage to make it happen. The clock is ticking. You had better be ready before it happens.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here on Tuesday. It is Tuesday, the 10th of February. We're going on a cruise. Leanne's going with us. I hope you want to go. We got some time to get you signed up. We'll be leaving Florida on the 9th day of February. All the damage in the Caribbean will be fixed up and it'll be brand spanking new like it never happened by then. That's what happens after these storms. The crews come in, the material comes in, everything gets fixed up and looking fresh and pristine again. We'll have St. Valentine's Day right in the middle of the cruise. It will be romantic if you choose it to be. It'll be fun. We'll have a lot of great, lengthy conversations. We do not yet have a commitment from Sam Andrews and his lovely wife. We're hoping to get that commitment soon. She has to wait to check with her people she works for. And get the details there at my website at thelibertyman.com. If you don't have internet access, you want a nice full-color brochure, give our cruise director, Betsy Murphy, a call. Betsy's telephone number is 636-530-9502. I say it again, 636-530-9502. Visiting with Leon Green, we're talking about doTERRA essential oils. And there's lots of things you can use these oils for. I use them for cleaning, for doing laundry, to do a load of laundry. I use 3 drops of lemon and 3 drops of Purify. The laundry comes out fresh and clean and smelling like lemons. Natural. These are natural smells, not some kind of artificial chemical smells that pretends to be lemon. And it's great. It's inexpensive. Those 6 drops are less expensive than these laundry detergents, and far better for the environment, for everything. And I use the oils around the house here. I'll use the peppermint in the morning, use the lavender in the evening out of a diffuser to help set the mood that I want to set, to be all energized and meeting the demands of the day, or wanting to calm down and relax at the end of the day. The oils just can and should be part of your daily life, right, Leon?
Absolutely, and I start my day off. The last thing I did after that 9-hour or 8.5-hour drive from Denver last night at 0300 was I took oils right before I went to sleep. So, I take when I wake up and when I go to sleep, because of the fact and throughout the day. And now I'm going to be with 30,000 people out here in Salt Lake City, in 2 different rooms. I'm going to be taking the oils probably every half an hour, because people are flying in from China and Australia and France, and they're bringing all the bugs that are in those airports to America. And people here in America are just driving around, and they're taking the trains and planes and automobiles, and they're bringing bugs, and they're going to share it. So my attitude is I'm not the people, whenever you're around that kind of mass of people, humanity, it's just like during a grid down event, they're going to bring all sorts of bugs. And so it's always good for you to have protection against those germs. And I take them probably every 20, 30 minutes because of the fact that I don't like to, I'm not going to go into this training in the next 2 weeks and be sick because I didn't, just take a simple, 2-second hit of the oils sublingually, and it's that effective. And so, I've flown on the plane. I went to, we took my son and I, we went to Israel a couple of years back, and that was, he knew every 15 to 20 minutes on this plane with 400 people going to Tel Aviv and Austria, we took the oils, and we didn't get sick at all on that 3-week trip because we did that. But there were people who flew in with us on that trip, and they were sick the entire trip, and they were just there for a week. So having the access to oils can protect you from natural germs. And one thing we were talking about earlier that I didn't get to finish on was if you don't have access to tons of antibiotics, whatever you have that you've kept after the last issue with your children's sickness and your own that you've stashed, it may be 2 weeks old, it may be 2 years old or 10 years old. Those pharmaceuticals those antibiotics will have an expiration date. And tetracycline actually becomes toxic. It's actually more damaging to use it after it's expired than not to use it at all. So, many people say, well, I'm good enough. I'm only going to get sick, and everything will go back to normal within weeks. And so if you see how Puerto Rico had power outages even a year after the last hurricane that came through, to think that your smidget of pharmaceutical antibiotics are going to last you and your family for decades into the future is just silliness. And so it'll definitely impact you.
Right, that's a fantasy. Reality is you need a serious inventory of these oils. We don't know what the future holds. We know what the possibilities are. But a civil disorder, grid down situation for 4 weeks will change this country forever, won't it?
Absolutely. And it was crazy that it was only an 8-hour period when the EBT, the food stamps, the online food stamps program went down, and they raided the Walmart.
Hold that thought, man. We got a break. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We have a special promotion going on at Republic Broadcasting. This is a fundraiser for Republic Broadcasting involving the Energy Cleaner. Mail me a postcard. My address is at my website at thelibertyman.com. We pick a postcard every other Thursday. When your postcard is drawn out, you get to buy an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285, $70 discount. $200 goes to Republic Broadcasting. You also get a 10% discount on my mattress pads. So get those postcards in, put your name, your telephone number, your email address on there, and when your postcard is drawn, you get to get an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285. Mattress pads, 10% off. Help us out at Republic Broadcasting and help yourself to get an energy cleaner at a deep discount. It's a win-win situation for everybody. We hope you can get these postcards in soon. Thank you very much. All right, we're back, gentlemen. J.R. Moore on Tuesday, the 10th day of September. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. We have a project involving many of our listeners. The project involves locating images of continents with different coastlines, new coastlines, images on movies and TV shows primarily. Sometimes they show up in a magazine. If you find one of these images, get that screen capture to me. You get your choice of any of my 6 DVDs as a thank you. And it's a fun project. The list keeps growing. Movies that are incredibly popular, tens of millions of people have seen, such as The Godfather, Hunger Games, Superman, movies like that. TV shows that are incredibly popular like NCIS, and TV shows you maybe never heard of. So all those images are right there at my website, where it says on the left side, you scroll down where it says New Coastlines in the Media. You'll see all those images we've found so far. Also on my website, of course, you'll find energy clinics for sale. This is my home business. If you're tired of your arthritis pain, if you're tired of waking up tired, you need an energy cleaner. I use mine every night. Leon uses his every night. And it's a great way to help maintain optimal health, to recover from things like arthritis and joint pain and insomnia. I offer a 90-day money-back guarantee. The details at my website at thelibertyman.com, where you can place your order using PayPal. Here's what's great about PayPal. You don't give up your credit card information. It is very, very secure. MasterCard, Visa, you can send me a check. My address is there also. You can call my toll-free auto line 24 hours a day. 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. When you place your order, I'm the guy that boxes them up. I take them to the Little Country Post Office at Cherryville, Missouri, where they get shipped priority mail, signature confirmation. We're talking about doTERRA essential oils. It's part of my life. It's a great part of my life. It should and can be a great part of your life. Incorporating these oils, as human beings have been doing for many thousands of years, many, many liters, gallons of essential oils were found in King Tut's tomb, perfectly viable, ready to be used if a person needed to use them after being in storage for several thousand years. They have no expiration date on these oils. They simply do not expire. They can't expire. You want to keep them away from direct sunlight. You want to keep them in a relatively cool place. Other than that, you're good to go. And once you start on these oils, you'll find ever more uses for them in daily life, won't you, Leon?
Yes, sir. I mean, I get calls on which, and even that book we talked about earlier, it has, not only recipes, but dealing with something as simple as termites. How patchouli oil is highly effective against termites. So, and bites and stings from, mosquitoes and others. And so, the uses, that people find, the application are fantastic. And I remember I couldn't believe how effective lemon oil was in removing permanent, Sharpie stains on paint. And, I saw somebody do this. We were at a hotel, and he said, "This is how effective it is." And he wrote on the wall, and I was like, "Holy cow, if you make a mistake, you're paying for that." and
right.
He broke out,
right.
That and cleared it right off. And then I've seen, kids have done it. You have Sharpies at home, and kids will get a hold of it, and they mess up walls. And so, Goo Gone does not work very well on that. It works in many cases, but not as well as lemon oil does. So it is phenomenal to see the massive use of, the massive application uses of, for dogs and having heartworm and ticks. You can use it. There's so many different applications, and like you were saying, the laundry issue. So, whatever human malady physically and even emotionally. I mean, the people who deal with desperation and depression, when if your 13-month prognosis occurs, the impact emotionally on people is going to be incredible. And so, having something as simple as a direct nose diffuser, you touch it to any of the oils, especially the citrus oils, to your nose, you're breathing those in internally. So they go into your bronchial cavities, and now it's protecting you. But because your nose is part of the limbic system, it actually allows the oils to mainstream right to your brain, and that's the only system in the body that doesn't have any filters. All the rest of them, they have to go through all the cortices to be applied and to be censored. The oils and the sense of smell is the only sensation of the five senses that is straight to the brain, and so it has a huge emotional impact. And people have known it for years of how. I mean, you see that even when you go to casinos, they pump smells into the air to keep you motivated and relax your anxiety of gambling the rent on at the tables and on the slot machines, because they want you to continue spending. So if the big casinos that are worth billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars are doing it, then there's a motivation there. And so something as simple as having emotional support using the oils when a calamity occurs, and it could be the loss of your dog, a loss of your spouse. Go down the list. The oils are very effective, and I've had friends in which they lost their dog, during one of our trainings. The dog fell off a porch and hung himself. They had him connected, and he died there. And they tried to resuscitate it, but it was already, they didn't recognize it till 45 minutes later, so the dog had expired. And everybody at the training, they had children as young as 4 years old, all the way up to a man in his 70s. They were all emotionally distraught, and I just passed around the citrus oils. And we prayed because of the impact that these kids had known these dogs for 15 years. One of the dogs passed away. And so it was monumental to see how. And then the man contacted me the next day and said, I really appreciated it. Those oils got me home, because he had some oils. He didn't have the specific citrus oils and citrus bliss and a couple other oils. And I just gave it to him and said, here, this can help you. I'd like you to use it if you can remember to do it. And he said that made all the difference in the world, because he had to drive 80 miles to get back home and bury his dog. And he was just flabbergasted at the impact that, his mistake was and how it impacted the family. And the children enjoyed the oils, and they said, Mom, it made a big difference. So, something as simple as the dog passing had a huge impact. And imagine now your house is blown out and it's down the street through a tornado or a hurricane or a civil unrest. And how are you going to be emotionally impacted by it? So, the oils have physical, emotional, and even spiritual applications. So they're phenomenal in that capacity.
They are. Well, people hear pitches all the time, wanting people to buy this and buy that. I'm not aware of anything else that is attempting to be sold to individuals that has a 5,000-year track record of success. Are you, other than gold coins, of course? I mean, gold coins have been around for 5,000 years, but what else has been around for 5,000 years that human beings have used successfully?
Other than water, that's pretty much it. And now with biosludged water, and you really have to protect yourself against that. Look what happened in Flint, Michigan. So, the number of waterborne illnesses are incredible. So, yeah, water and gold and precious metals have been around for 5,000 years, but you have to make sure that you protect yourself by what you intake. So, yes, and that's crucial with doTERRA. And because many people say, wow, I've learned so much from John and Leon, and then I'll just go to Wally World and buy their stuff for 99 cents. That has no medical and medicinal application in life. It is only gasoline with a pretty smell. It is completely that the stuff you get at the stores that is that cheap has nothing beneficial for you other than the smell. And so it may help. But you also I've had many people, especially ladies, say, I'm allergic to stinky smells. I'm like, yeah, I understand that, because you get those things that dangle in your car, or the spray stuff in the bathrooms. That is all chemical too. And so it's crucial where you get your oils, because they are 50 to 70 times more concentrated than the underlying herb. And because of that, if you get it from a source that has, just like if you have basil in your backyard and tomatoes growing in your backyard, and your neighbors are spraying Roundup and glyphosate and all the chemical pesticides and insecticides in their backyard, and you're like, oh, that fence is going to stop all the chemicals from getting on my basil. That's a fantasy too. You're going to be ingesting that. But the basil you have in your backyard is 1-to-1 ratio. The basil you get from doTERRA is anywhere from 50 to 70 times more concentrated than that basil. So it's extremely concentrated. So any pesticides and chemicals that are in the air, you will now have in your food. And so doTERRA tests every batch and every liter for microbes and diluents, like, many of the cheap companies will put in olive oil or sunflower oil because they're like, hey, we're giving you the real oil, but we're going to dilute it 90%. Well, now you have to take 90% more or 90 times more in order to get that same effect. And then those carrier oils that they dilute, trying to keep it cheap for you, those things will go rancid. Look at olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. It only lasts, a year to 3 years, depending on how it's stored. And you can use the cheaper oil, the pure oil, the fourth pressing, but that doesn't have any of the medicinal or doesn't have any of the flavor components that extra virgin olive oil does. So many people say, well, I'll just get it cheap. And this is not the time to go cheap when you're dealing with your own health and your family's health, because in a grid down scenario, you won't be able to rectify your mistake because Wally World will be closed and the post office won't be shipping, so therefore and neither will FedEx and UPS. So what happens is whatever you have in the antibiotic realm is all you have. And so short of you going to raid a pharmaceutical location or a Walmart distribution center, you're putting yourself and your family at risk, and now you're also picking up more synthetic drugs that have side effects, that have an expiration, and you're putting yourself at risk. So it's silly in that regard to do something when you know you can do it now and you can learn about it now, and you can also get to wean yourself off of the pharmaceutical drugs now while everything is at the luxury of today. Whereas when everything goes south in 13 months or less, then it'll be too late. And then now, if any sickness, any disease you have will now be much more aggressive because you won't have any protection. You won't have pharmaceutical drugs, and by procrastination, if you don't have the essential oils by doTERRA, you won't have any protection. So now it's just how good is your immune system, and it'll be severely compromised with all the exercise and lack of sleep and stress attached to crisis scenarios that may last for not only days but weeks or months, and possibly even years.
Well, you've covered a lot of territory there, Leon, and I hope people are paying heed. Our goal here is to help people help themselves, help people to have the healthy, full, productive, fun life that people can and should have. It's up to the individual. We're leading the people to the water. Whether they choose to drink or not, that's their choice. I respect that. I have no emotional attachment to the outcome. That's their choice, and I respect their choice. They can continue down the path they're going, or they can choose a different path, a path that leads to real health and real well-being, as opposed to chasing symptoms with pharmaceutical products, which is what most Americans do most of the time, which is why there's more than 30 countries that have a longer longevity than we do in the United States, despite our country spending more per person on what's called health care than any country on the planet. Something's really broken there, Leon, isn't it?
Absolutely. And so if people, try to dismiss this, they're thinking, well, we do have the best trauma medicine in the entire world. If I got in a car accident last night coming down the valleys through Salt Lake City, my arm was amputated. They have sophistication here that they can actually reattach it if I had to bring my own body part into the ER, and they are that sophisticated. But they have no motivation at all for prevention, because if you are healthy, they don't get paid a penny. But if you're sick anywhere in that spectrum, up to being dead, they get, it's a $2 trillion industry. So, in that capacity, you should be the one most interested in yourself being healthy. And, we always talk about the average American diet, which is beer, cookies, and pizza. And, the pizza, unless you're an avid cook, you probably won't have access to after the grid down anyway. So you might also start learning about, freeze-dried food and making your own, and canning, and dehydrating, and salting your meat, because after all the fast food or fat food restaurants close, that's all the food you have. So unless you have a nice garden growing in the backyard and you have food attached, you're going to be on your own. And so if you think FEMA can come bail you out, look how well they did in Katrina, and look at Super Sandy. So if you want to rely on the government for your family's integrity, and jump on the bus, the FEMA bus, you know where that's going to end. So, we are just trying to give you insight and motivation and prompting, and hopefully not too much prodding to say, hey, I'm gonna not be responsible for my own family's health and wealth.
Well, ultimately, we are responsible. Everybody has the privilege and the right to accept or turn down whatever a medical doctor offers. That's your ability and capability. I choose not to even go to a medical doctor myself. That's my choice, and I'm doing quite well without doing that. And the oils help me take care of whatever issues come up, so I don't need to be going to a medical doctor, and that just suits me fine. Leon, I suspect you avoid medical doctors as much as you can as well, don't you?
Yes, sir. I avoid them like the plague, and I'll hold up.
Well, speaking of which, the plague is making a comeback in Metro Los Angeles.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms, or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356, or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN, at hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 10th of September. Well, Leon, we educate, we inform, we entertain, we nudge, and I mean, we do what we can. People don't want to talk about their personal health stuff publicly. I respect that, and it's probably not the best thing to be doing, is discussing your personal health concerns in front of 10,000 people here on the radio. And that's why we give your phone number, so people can have a private discussion with you. Leon's private telephone number is 303-495-2188 if you want a private consultation, or if you would like to consider making doTERRA a part-time business, that'd be a good reason to call Leon. And that telephone number one more time is 303-495-2188. You've been to about, 10 of these annual conventions here, Leon?
That's correct. Yes, I'm going to the next one in a matter of hours. So, yes, it's had a huge impact. I learn a lot, and as a matter of fact, they have live streaming right now. So if anybody is a member or not even a member, you can still go. If you want to call me, or you can actually just type in Google doTERRA Convention 2019 live streaming. You can access that. There's a small fee, but you can save a flight and not exposed to all the bugs, and you can learn a lot there. And this is not a rah-rah session. They're going to talk about the science at the molecular level of the oils, and also they bring in experts, doctors that work with doTERRA or know of doTERRA, or scientists who work with doTERRA, and they address those issues, and then they also talk about the new oils that they've released. And so, and in that break, I was just listening to, or just went to townhall.com, and they talk about the bubonic plague now, and they're trying to blame it on the homeless, but it's the only major city that does not have a rodent program. And so they talk about tuberculosis. Yes, sir.
It must be something politically incorrect about capturing and killing rodents, I guess.
Those rats, those rats. And so what happens is, but they talked about typhus and how airborne TB is now, all three vectors are now being perpetuated there in the City of Angels. So, I just read that just in the last minute or so, and I was just surprised at how bad it is. So, that city has changed drastically, and with all the Democratic aspects, or the Democrats, or have changed the entire landscape up there. What happens in LA starts to spread nationwide. So if that's an indicator, we have lots of problems coming down the pike, and just medically due to bubonic plague, and it killed roughly 20 to 40% of Europe, and it hit the rest of the world, but Europe was really the one that was impacted the most.
Right.
So,
well, the cities in Europe in that period of time were rather disgusting places in terms of sanitation and hygiene, and it's no wonder that many people died. Well, Leon, we're just about out of time here. What words of wisdom you want to leave with our audience this week?
I would say, if you're able to, if you can live stream it, you can actually watch it recorded, but you can learn a lot and understand the power of the oils. And please contact me, definitely leave a message. Thanks.
Sounds good. Leon, thanks for having back next week. That's it for the day. Get medical supplies, energy, plenty, or essential oils now while you can. Any firearms ammunition. Ever good guns. Please do a fun, safe, productive day. God bless America.